So this is the last thing I want to talk about today. I'm not going to be able to finish it. I want to broach the subject so that we start thinking about pricing issues, and you'll understand now why pricing is deeply connected to the financing. I need to know what I can charge for these drugs and what the optimal level of stratification is in order to figure out whether or not, from my investor's point of view, they're going to earn a decent rate of return. So what can we price these at? Well, Alexion has set the bar by pricing their drug at $440,000. For a few years, they were known as the most expensive drug. I don't know if that's still true, but back in 2010, they were the most expensive drug in the world. And so that's the challenge, is that now we're starting to get pushback. So just a few days ago, NPR ran a story on how the whole rare disease market has come under fire because people are saying that the system is rigged. Now, yes, the system is rigged. We rigged it. I mean, Congress rigged it with the Orphan Drug Act of 1983 and the Orphan Disease Act of 2002. We purposely created incentives in order to get people to develop therapies for these terrible afflictions. But it's worked maybe way too well. And so as part of this report, there was a description by a reporter who works at Kaiser Health News, who says the following. A Kaiser Health News investigation shows that the system intended to help desperate patients is being manipulated by drug makers to maximize profits and to protect niche markets for medicines already being taken by millions. The companies aren't breaking the law, but they are using the Orphan Drug Act to their advantage in ways that its architects say they didn't foresee or intend. Now, I have to say that as an economist, reading that passage that I've highlighted in red, that's my highlighting, not theirs. If you didn't know anything about the situation, if you didn't know anything about the underlying diseases or the patients or the particular context, this statement is a little weird, right? Because what you're saying is that these people, they're terrible. They're just maximizing profits. You're criticizing them for taking advantage of the system that you put into place. They're working the system. And later on, it says here that the companies aren't breaking the law. OK, that's useful. They're not breaking the law. Let's keep that in mind. Nobody's breaking the law, but they're using the Orphan Drug Act to their advantage. Of course they are. If I give you an opportunity to take a deduction off of your taxes, to use the law to your advantage, are you not going to use it to your advantage? So what's wrong with this? This seems antithetical to capitalism, doesn't it? The story's not that simple, because there is another side to this. And I want to tell you the other side. I'm not going to take sides. My role is to facilitate and just show you what the issues are. You're going to have to decide for yourself, because I don't think there is an answer. But let me tell you what the issues are. So it turns out that, yes, we set up these incentives. But the incentives were there for a particular purpose. And it turns out that not surprisingly, entrepreneurial individuals and companies have taken these rules and regulations and have optimized them. They've used them to their advantage. So I'll give you an example. Most recently, a company called Marathon Pharmaceuticals just got approval from the FDA for a steroid called deflazacort. And it's a steroid that is particularly useful for patients with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. This is a rare disease that affects maybe, I don't know, a couple thousand young boys in the United States, maybe 10,000 worldwide. And it's a debilitating disorder in which your muscles begin to atrophy, and by the time you're in your teens, you're confined to a wheelchair, and eventually you will die. It's a fatal disease. You live to your 20s maybe, and it's a very difficult existence. So there is no known cure or therapy for DMD right now. There are a number of things being developed, but it's a rare disease. And this company, Marathon Pharmaceuticals, decided to take on a particular kind of a therapy called deflazacort, and they got it approved through the FDA in their rare disease program. And on top of that, because it's for kids, they got one of these priority review vouchers. So they really hit the jackpot. And they just got the drug approved, and they're charging about $89,000 a year for the drug. Now, you know, $89,000 a year, what's the big deal? Soliris is $440,000. That doesn't cure anything either. This drug, it maybe slows down your muscle deterioration process. Well, here's the backstory. The backstory is that deflazacort is a drug that has already been approved in other countries, not for DMD. It has not been approved for DMD at all, but it's been approved for other indications. But parents of DMD children have been buying this drug for years. I've talked to a father of a DMD patient just last week, and he tells me that he spends about $800 a year buying this drug in the United Kingdom. You can get it in Canada for about $1,000. And now that the drug is approved for DMD in the United States, it is illegal to purchase it in Canada or the UK. You have to buy it in the United States for that indication. So from $1,000 a year to now $89,000 a year, that's what Marathon is proposing to charge for it. And it's tough because, you know, even with fantastic health plans, I don't know what your health plan is. I hope it's a good one. Massachusetts is a great state for health plans. But whatever it is, if the health plan decides that they're not going to cover it, you've got a problem. Even if they do cover it, an $89,000 drug typically comes with it a copay of what? 10, 15, 20%? And some plans before Obamacare had caps, and you know, they may yet have caps depending on what happens, in which case you can wipe out your lifetime health insurance reimbursement with just a couple of years of this drug. So parents that were paying a few $100s for this drug are now going to be paying list price $89,000. Who knows what the discounted price will be, but even so, a very big difference. Now, the story gets even more complicated because let's ask the question, what has the company done in order to do this? There is a value to having them get the drug approved for this indication that nobody tried to get it approved for before, right? They took on risk. Well, it turns out that they didn't take that much risk because we already know that the drug is safe because it's been approved in other countries for other indications. So that part's already done. Well, they didn't have to do clinical trials. It turns out that the studies that they submitted, a number of the studies were from previous clinical trials that were done 15 and 20 years ago for which they purchased the data. The data just had never been analyzed, and they purchased that. And so the actual number of studies that they did were probably on the order of 10, 20, 30 patients. So it's not like they took a lot of risk. What this company did from the financial perspective is they found an arbitrage, right? They realized that safety is not an issue because it's already approved in other countries, but not here. They identified it as a rare disease, a small patient population for children. They got the PRV. And they didn't have to take on that much risk themselves to do the clinical trials because we're talking about a relatively small patient population. So they were able to put the whole package together. Congress is now asking this company to disclose how much money they spent on R&D. We don't know the answer yet. This is still a developing situation. So it's something that I wanted to bring to your attention because of the issue. Now, in a number of different contexts, various different journalists were asked, why does the FDA let this go on? For example, the FDA gave them expedited review. It gave them all of these advantages. It will protect them from competition for 7 years. And on top of that, it gave them a PRV. So the FDA responded. This is what the FDA said when they were asked by this reporter why it was that they were shown the red carpet in terms of getting this approved. The FDA said, very simply, deflazacort has never been approved for any use in the United States. Under US law, it was reviewed as a new drug and assessed for safety and efficacy for the specific conditions of use in the labeling. Versions of deflazacort are available in some countries for other indications, but not for DMD. The US approval is the first anywhere for DMD. The FDA-approved product labeling includes safety and clinical information to specify the drug's use in DMD. If a drug meets the statutory requirements for orphan drug designation, expedited programs, and rare pediatric disease designation, then a sponsor is eligible to receive those benefits. period. End of story. It's not up to the FDA. This drug company figured out how to work the system. And they did a fantastic job for their investors until now, because Congress is going to have something to say about whether you can charge $89,000 for a drug that was available just a few days ago for $1,000 a year. Now, this is a complicated situation because they did something. It's not like a pure price gouging situation where somebody buys a drug that's already approved in the US and jacks up the price 5,000%. It's a little bit different, but you can understand the moral complexities here, right? It's not that, yay, capitalism, they're doing great things for DMD patients, and I'm so glad that they're there. I spoke to this patient, the patient's father, and he said something I was quite impressed by. He said, you know what, I'm all for capitalism, and you know what, there is value in having a drug produced here in the US by the FDA, with their FDA's approval, and with the production processes that can ensure safety, efficacy, purity. I'm willing to pay, I don't know, $10,000 a year for this drug, but not $89,000. That just is outrageous. That's not an economic consideration. We're not talking economics now. Now, do you understand? We've now moved to ethics, and this is where things get complicated. So the pricing issue cannot be ignored. I don't have an answer, but I want you to think about this, because ultimately this question is going to come back, and this situation is going to evolve. So we're going to see over the course of the next few weeks what happens. They have actually withdrawn their pricing proposal, but they've been asked by Congress to provide information about the R&D costs and so on, and they're going to have to submit a new pricing proposal soon if they want to market the drug. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this turns out. And hopefully, over the course of the next few weeks, you will have some things to add to how we ought to think about this, because we need an answer, and we don't have it right now.